Hello, everybody. Welcome to Together Women Rises July seminar. I'm Betsy Teutsch. Some of you I know. It's nice to see you, but nice to meet you all. I am the secretary on the RISE Board of Directors, and I also am a co-leader of a chapter here in Philadelphia. I will moderate tonight's event, and whether this is your first RISE event or you're a returnee, thank you for joining us this evening. We're delighted to have you. Together Women Rise is a powerful community of women and allies dedicated to achieving global gender equality. Together, we learn about and advocate for gender equality, give grants to organizations empowering women and girls in low-income communities in the Global South, and we build community to forge meaningful connections with each other and with women around the world. Our model is based on collective giving. By harnessing the power of coming together, all contributions are valued and can make a powerful impact. If you are inspired to support our work or continue supporting our work, please check out the link that will be in the chat. Before we get started, here are a few Zoom reminders. Keep yourself on mute while our speakers are presenting, please. There will be a Q&A after the speakers. Please enter your questions in the chat. We will do our best to get to as many questions as we can. And if you need closed captioning, you can use it at the bottom of the toolbar. Show captions. Click. It's now time to turn to our program for tonight. At these monthly webinars, you have the opportunity to learn about the challenges and issues faced by women and girls, as well as the important work that together we are funding to meet these challenges. This month, we are focusing on the value of investing in girls' education with our featured grantee, Limitless Horizons Ixil in Guatemala. First, we're going to play a short video about the organization. Then we'll talk with our guest speaker, Katie Morrow. And afterwards, we get to hear from people who visited via our trip.
Hello, my name is Claire O'Brien, and I'm a Together Women Rise member from Westford, Massachusetts, and a former volunteer for the Grant Selection Committee. I was also one of the travelers on RISE's recent trip to Guatemala. Our group spent several days with Limitless Horizons Ixil, which is our featured grantee of the month for the month of July. We previously funded Limitless Horizons in 2017. This month, we're focusing on the value of investing in girls' education. Around the world, girls continue to face barriers to accessing and completing their education. Limitless Horizons believes that education is the cornerstone of creating a bright, free future, both for the individual and for the community. And we certainly witnessed that on our trip to Guatemala. We spent several days visiting the community of Chagul, which is a remote rural area that was at the center of the Guatemalan Civil War. And it remains deeply scarred by the violence of the war. The centerpiece of our visit was the Limitless Horizons Girls-Centered School, which provides a holistic educational program including engaging academics, mentoring, nutritious meals, and family services that allow their students to thrive. Graduates become champions for gender equality and women's rights, leading their community to a brighter future and their families to a better income, health, and a better well-being. We were able to witness the impact that their program has on families when we split up into smaller groups and shared a meal at their homes twice during our trip. We learned how to make tortillas and even how to weave, which is most of the women's main source of income. For example, this shirt is one of the shirts that the women there have weaved. This was my first trip with Together Women Rise, and it was an incredible experience. You can hear more about it from my fellow travelers who will be speaking on July 1st on the webinar. If you missed attending the July 1st webinar, you can watch the recording because it'll be available on our website. If you have ever considered a RISE trip, I encourage you to check out our remaining trips of the year to Malawi in October and Cambodia in November. The registration deadlines are approaching and space is limited. To check for availability and more trip details, please just check out our website. With summer here, many of us will be off on vacations or busy with other summer activities. Please consider signing up for recurring donations so that you continue to support Together Women Rise throughout the summer. And if you're looking for some summer reading, check out our upcoming book club selections. In September, we'll discuss the book Last to Eat, Last to Learn, My Life in Afghanistan, Fighting to Educate Women by Pashtana Durrani. Our event is September 12th, and the author will be our guest speaker. Thank you for your support, and enjoy this video from Limitless Horizons Ixil.
Mi nombre es Juana Roseña. Soy una estudiante del Colegio Horizontes y somos la primera generación del colegio.
La verdadera razón de Horizontes es la educación, porque creemos que solo a través de la educación podemos generar impacto positivo, podemos transformar la vida de nuestros estudiantes, de su familia y de su comunidad.
Yo pensé que la educación es muy importante porque me ayudará en mi futuro y que nos ayudará a que mi comunidad Ixil pueda avanzar y que salga de la pobreza.
Horizontes ha sido una semilla aquí en la región Ixil desde un principio, años anteriores, antes de 2004, las mujeres no tenían oportunidad de ir a una escuela.
Realmente veíamos la necesidad de brindar un espacio agradable, un espacio seguro, brindar una educación de calidad a nuestros estudiantes y no lo encontrábamos en la región. A raíz de eso es que concentramos todos nuestros esfuerzos en el colegio. La primera meta, educación superior, y esta base académica les tiene que permitir abrir oportunidades para cuando ellos egresen en el bachillerato. También tenemos la meta de seguridad económica. Y en el colegio también estamos trabajando fuertemente con el curso de emprendimiento, las habilidades tecnológicas y el inglés. Una tercera meta es igualdad de género. Horizontes ha disminuido esa brecha existente entre las oportunidades que se le da a los varones y a las niñas. Una cuarta meta es liderazgo comunitario. Hay muchas necesidades en nuestros municipios y los niños ya las han identificado.
Desde que supe que había una beca de Horizontes, yo quería una beca. Y cuando supe que yo iba a ser parte, sentí que mi sueño se había cumplido y me puse muy feliz. quería ser abogada. Veía que había muchos conflictos sobre muchas cosas, como las tierras, que siempre las personas se andan peleando, y también por el agua, que ya se está acabando. Entonces yo quise apoyar así y hacer justicia cuando sea necesario.
Horizontes también ha implementado muchas cosas para seguir beneficiando siempre a la comunidad. La biblioteca comunitaria es para toda la comunidad. Está la hora de cuento, que participan niños y niñas, y que también jóvenes que llegan a hacer su tarea han creado como una cultura de lectura. Y a la par de esto está hora cultural para no perder la identidad, que los niños siempre puedan identificarse como personas indígenas.
Tienen también la oportunidad de recibir alimentación sana y nutritiva que les va también a ayudar en su aprendizaje.
Mentoría es un nuevo programa que acompaña a los estudiantes en la parte integral.
En un mundo tan exigente como el que tenemos ahora, es súper importante desarrollar competencias como la resiliencia, voz empoderada, pensamiento crítico, innovación, excelencia, red de apoyo.
¿Cómo ha utilizado su voz empoderada?
Como he utilizado mi voz empoderada a través de decir la verdad con mis padres y con mis mejores amigos.
También seguimos trabajando con nuestros estudiantes después de que se gradúan, porque no queremos perder ese vínculo con nuestros egresados.
Para mí es una semilla y que va a florecer y que va a apoyar muchas vidas.
Mi sueño es que mi familia también puedan tener un estudio en que salgan de la pobreza y que también hagan un cambio.
Estamos plantando la semilla, pero sabemos que esto que estamos haciendo ahora va a tener raíces sólidas y no habrá nadie que arranque esas raíces sólidas y entonces se va a proyectar en el mundo.
That was a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much. We are pleased to have with us tonight Katie Morrow, co-founder and executive director of Limitless Horizons Ixil. We funded this group in 2017, so some of you might remember, and it's a maturation process, both for our organization and for Limitless Horizons to come back and see how they are thriving. After Katie's first visit to Shahul in 2003, she was compelled by the beautiful culture and generosity of the people, juxtaposed with the lack of educational opportunities, particularly for girls. She saw within these girls who were living in extreme poverty the desire and motivation to continue their education. Katie has spent a significant part of each year since then in Guatemala, working alongside locals from Shahul to bring new opportunities to the community through education and community development. Katie has also led over 50 service learning trips across Latin America since 2003, helping youth and adults gain appreciation for new cultures and bringing service projects to communities in need. Katie oversees all areas of Limitless Horizon operations, including planning, partnerships, fundraising, and fiscal management, programs, and staff management. And yet she found time to be with us tonight. Thank you so much. Katie, the first question is, let's hear your own personal story. Please tell us about your first visit to Shahul and how it inspired you to found Limitless Horizons.
Great. Thank you so much for the question. And before I get started, I just want to say I'm so pleased to be here again. It's such an honor to be invited back. And I just have to say, particularly Together Women Rise is close to my heart as I regularly go to our local chapter. My mother's a chapter leader. My aunt is a chapter leader. And so it's really an honor to be back. So thank you. I founded Limitless Horizons Ixil 20 years ago after I visited Chapul, which means my baby's all grown up now at 20, which is crazy to say. Our co-founder Pedro was my Spanish teacher and invited me up to visit his home community. Chapul is a rural indigenous community, like you were able to see in the video. It's 7 hours up windy roads at 7,000 feet in a very rural part of Guatemala at the very end of the road. That first time I went to go and visit 20 years ago, it felt like going back 100 years. I stayed with Pedro and his family in his one-room adobe house with a dirt floor and open fire pit for cooking and warmth. I remember sitting around, huddling in the evenings around the fire as they spoke the indigenous Mayan language of Ixil, and the Chapul dialect is only spoken in Ixil. In Chapul in the entire world. Pedro went on to become the first, not only in his family, but the entire community of 50,000 people to graduate to receive a university degree. And he knew the only reason it was possible to be able to get that degree is because he was a boy and because he was able to find an outside scholarship. And after spending time with his family, I can tell you they were just as bright, interested in books and learning, but never had the opportunity, not even to finish elementary school, to go past second or third grade. Pedro had the idea of paying forward his education and giving that opportunity to other people that weren't as lucky as him. And we were both passionate about providing opportunity for girls to study who so clearly didn't have any of those options. That first year, we sponsored 10 students. I went home and found 10 of my friends to give $100 each. And if you can believe it, that first year we started on a budget of $1,000. After that, I became very dedicated and passionate. I quit my full-time job. I moved in with my mom and slept on her couch to get everything going. And we've obviously grown steadily since then, both in our fundraising and our programs. And it became really clear that we needed more than just scholarships, that there was so many more needs to cover. And so at that point, we began to grow, and we'll hear about that.
Well, that is so inspiring, and what a difference that one committed person can make is always astounding to so many of us. Can you describe how your organization has grown and evolved, especially since we first funded you in 2017?
Yeah, obviously
Feels like yesterday.
I know. It does actually. Obviously you can see that we never would have dreamed that we would have been able to come so far and achieve what we've been able to do now. In the first 17 years of our history, we focused on access to education. You can see baby me here in the picture. We offered students scholarships and wraparound services for students that didn't have the chance to get an education through our youth development program. And then further, we supported them through their high school graduations and then on with job experience, and supported the first generation of girls in particular to ever go on to university through our Emerging Leaders program.
Wow.
A little after that, we opened our community library in 2010 because it became really clear that literally there are no books in school and students had never even touched a book before. And so hard to succeed in education without access to books. So our community library grew, and we now offer not only books and reading and homework help, but also story hour, including cultural story hour, book club adventures in math, science, and English, and vacation programming. And also during COVID, we expanded our program to include bilingual Ixil Spanish radio story hour that also incorporates life messages about education and health and gender equality. And we were proudly and humbly and gratefully able to actually receive the UNESCO Literacy Award for our work during that time. And then for many years, we also supported our mothers with the chance to earn money to support their children through our Women's Artisan Program to create beautiful weepeels. A few different women, including me, are wearing them tonight, and scarves and other products. After providing access to education that had proved so successful, we were able to see that in a community where less than 5% of households have a family member that are employed in the formal economy, 2/3 of our high school graduates are working or studying in university, which is really impressive. And our students were the very first generation of female professionals to graduate all the way through from middle school, then onto high school, then onto university. And just 19% of our alumni had children before the age of 23, but that's compared to 84% of their mothers that had children before that. And on a greater whole, it's been just such a pleasure to see so many firsts. First women in university, the first women in university in science, the first women to get master's degree, and to be a part of all of this very exciting time in Chapual.
Go ahead.
In 2018, speeding forward a little bit, our local team repeatedly presented us the need to start our own school. They weren't satisfied with local education. They knew the community needed a school where girls were safe, which was a big concern for us. The education was interactive instead of just rote memorization, and offered high quality academics. And girls were seen as equals in their classrooms and also encouraged to participate in class and to build their own futures. And over the next 3 years, our board and our amazing community of supporters were able to fundraise all the necessary funds to make it happen. We broke ground on construction on March 2020. And as we all know, what happened next? A day later, COVID hit, and we had to put everything on pause. And so after a year of delay, we opened our doors in January 2022. And this picture is from our inauguration. Such an incredible day. And so we were able to launch Colegio Horizontes Middle School, and our vibrant new school is now at full capacity this year in middle school with 72 students in 7th to 9th grade. Plus we have a prep program for our 6th graders, and is bringing high quality and safe and engaging education to Chapual for the first time. You can keep going through a couple of those pics to show. After launching the school in 2022, we've seen incredible changes in our students, from their improvements in Spanish language skills, critical thinking, leadership skills, to hygiene practices and confidence. And I can actually tell you, when students first came in, they were completely afraid to speak, oftentimes couldn't string 1 or 2 sentences together. They would cover their mouths when they talked. And now they're literally falling off of their chairs, wanting to present. They love to give speeches, to sing and dance, and they like to read novels and to discuss them. So quite an incredible change. And I can tell you it's been so much work to start a school, and it can be some days that are pretty exhausting, but we all feel so inspired by our students' progress, their gratitude and hope for their own futures, and how much that's been able to change. And it keeps all of our spirits high throughout this process. In our first year of operation, 100% of our 7th graders continued on to 8th grade, which 100% of students felt emotionally and physically safe at school. 91% of our students mastered every single one of their classes, and we boasted a stellar 95% attendance rate, demonstrating the dedication to their learning. And all of these are particularly impressive in the rural Indigenous Guatemala context. So speeding forward to today, and perfect, here's the picture, and we are excited for our growth and moving on to our next big step. We want to make sure our amazing middle school students have the opportunity to seamlessly continue on to high school. So we took the plunge and we're building our new high school. It's completely in progress. The construction's in progress right now. Will open in January 2025, where we'll provide the academic experience and the empowering, physically and emotionally safe, and specifically designed for girls high school that our middle school students so very much deserve. What I can tell you about the high school as well is that we'll be serving 50 high school students in 10th and 11th grade. It will support them to go on to university professional careers and be able to get into careers where women haven't been able to really break into thus far in Chahul, but in rural Guatemala in general, such as STEM areas in science and medicine. Our new high school will have the first high school science lab in the entire region. And we'll also be offering a host of support in community entrepreneurship as well. Students will also receive special training and receive certifications in technology, finance, and community leadership. Those are all areas we've identified that are particularly needed in the community, so that they'll be prepared and well-suited to fill the community jobs. We also have a guidance counselor that's working with our students to help them explore career options, apply to university, to technical programs and jobs. So in the long term, our school will be well positioned in Chahul and not only able to support our students, but also offer opportunities for other schools to learn from us as well. We'll be inviting them in to do teacher trainings and doing our best to support the whole community as well.
That is so wonderful. And have you ever seen a more beautiful school uniform than yours? That's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the historical background of this area. Chahul was an indigenous area that suffered through 36 years of the Guatemalan Civil War, which ended in 1996. So can you tell us some of the legacy of that trauma?
Yeah.
And how it moves forward a generation or two later?
As you mentioned, Chahul is at the center of the Guatemalan Civil War, which amounted to genocide, leaving it as one of the poorest communities in Guatemala today. 85% of the population lives in poverty. And it's also common, we're at the end of the road, we're high up in the mountains, and it was so hard hit during the Civil War. It's common to hear that Chahul has been forgotten by the Guatemala government and the nonprofit community at large. And the reality of what happened in Chahul is super upsetting. And it's certainly one of the motivations that for me drove me to start Limitless Horizons Ixil. Particularly during the 80s in the Ixil region, there were many towns that were completely wiped off the map. Women were raped and then killed alongside their children. Men were then killed after watching their family die and then forced to either fight in the military or were killed there. There's a military base in Chahul, and so people lived under great scrutiny and constant fear, and the military base was there for years. It prevented people from working or gathering in groups of 3 or more for a long period of time, a lot of years. So a lot of people lost that ability to work together or to come together easily with their neighbors. Men were forced to fight in the military, otherwise they would be killed in the front lines in hand-to-hand combat against the guerrillas, where sometimes oftentimes they're on the other side would be their neighbors or family members. When I first started, most families had lost multiple family members in the war, and many were traumatized, were experiencing great PTSD. And because it was really fresh when I started in the early 2000s as the war finalized in 1996. Also, we worked with a lot of families that were all women families because all the men in the families had been killed as well. We also saw elevated levels of alcoholism, domestic abuse related to untreated PTSD, and also systematic rape happened in the community throughout that time, and it made families feel fearful to send their girls to school. And so instead that they would protect them and keep them at home with them where they could make sure that they were safe. And during across that 36 years in general, there was no focus on education, obviously. So most children didn't even go on to elementary school, and if they did, they didn't finish, particularly girls. And so it was just when families were beginning to look outside of survival that they started considering education for their children in the early 2000s, which is when we started to work in Chahul.
Wow, so your timing was excellent and your sensitivity to what they had experienced was crucial to your success, I'm sure. How does Limitless Horizons, how do you address the intersectional barriers of poverty, gender, and ethnicity that hold back girls in Chahul? It's not just one problem, it's multiple problems.
Yeah, certainly. Chahul's girls need a strong system of support to succeed. Most of girls do not attend school, and if they do attend school, it's certainly they don't attend past 6th grade. But when they do, they struggle with poor educational resources, limited Spanish language skills as they grew up in a monolingual culture of Ixil, their parents' illiteracy, and all of that leads to low rates of success for them. Girls are particularly vulnerable to sexual and emotional abuse in school. In Chahul, 9 out of 10 teachers are men, and so which contributes to high dropout rates, and that's definitely one of the reasons why we felt so compelled to start our own school. Without a strong academic foundation, girls in Chahul assume gender roles like we see across the world and Together Women Rise programs, right? They stay at home cooking and cleaning. And as a number of our staff like to tell me, girls just stay home to serve men at home. And so Colegio Horizontes helps to bridge these gaps, challenging gender norms and addressing inequality in the community. Our team is led by an all-female Maya Ixil leadership team, just not seen in anywhere else in the community. And our programs are developed by and oriented toward the unique needs of girls in the community. By employing local teachers, we are also honoring and preserving the rich Ixil Mayan culture and heritage we celebrate with our students and families. Our Indigenous female teachers act as strong role models for our students and our girls, and helping to believe that I can do it too. And then they go on, they persevere in their education, and then also feel like they can pursue professional opportunities that until recently have only been reserved for men. Our student body is also a third boys. We have always been a third boys, and our theory of change is that we believe that we need to create lasting shifts in the community. We need to include boys, fathers, brothers, and slowly change perceptions in the community altogether. Through a robust mentoring program, our students receive one-to-one support, family workshops, a nutrition program, and 2 free meals a day in school. We address all their social and developmental issues that are keeping students from continuing in school through our mentorship program, and can keep them safe and in a supportive environment that girls desperately need to thrive in the community. So through
well, we could talk for the rest of the evening, but we do have to move on. But we are so thrilled to support your project and the school, and it's very exciting to see the new high school going up. And thank you so much, Katie. We are going to now hear from several RISE members who saw firsthand.
Betsy, we can take some questions from the chat.
Oh, okay. Can you
yes,
monitor that? Thank you.
Yes. So Katie, a number of people are asking about where the girls go for teacher training, where do they go for university, and what types of careers they're studying for.
Sure. So for teacher training, there is a local teacher college that's in Naba, a community that's just an hour away. That's been recent years. Our teachers, we actually are training for, generally speaking, for 6 months before we have them teaching classes in our school. We're completely changing their ideas of how they teach from rote memorization into a very interactive model, and also working on their content to make sure that they have what they need to be able to teach classes. University in general, Naba is the closest, an hour away, but most students are having to commute up to 4, 6, 8 hours away to go to university. There's weekend programs that are just 1 to 2 days a week, or full day programs. Most students, because of the travel and because of the huge economic cost of going 8 hours away for 5 days a week and having to live in other communities, most students are going to weekend school, and where they can't study things like engineering or medicine, they can become psychologists, social workers, teachers, and accountants, and a few other things. So there's sort of a divided program. I think
Great, thank you. Someone would like to know, what is the selection process used by Limitless to admit students?
It's really tricky, as you can imagine, because we serve 20, our classes are 25. We usually have 70 to 80 applicants. And then to be able to limit our numbers, we do home visits, we do student interviews, and we're primarily looking for motivation and need among the families. Of that population, 2/3 are girls. 50% live in extreme poverty, 30% live in poverty, and 20% have a little bit more, say like teachers' children. And so we're both getting those brackets, but we're also primarily trying to identify to make sure that both the students and the parents are highly motivated and want to see their students go from middle school to high school and potentially beyond to university or trade school or whatnot.
Great. After the girls get their further education, are there jobs for them locally so they can come back to the community and benefit the community?
Yes, I was going to get to that. I'm glad that question was asked. I was too long-winded, so we got knocked off at that last question. But yes, there's lots of jobs actually in Chahual, and the reason is because there are so few prepared professionals. So what we're seeing of our graduates is they're immediately getting snapped up into professional jobs, into all sorts of different areas, teachers, medicine, accountants, lawyers, and then being promoted quite quickly as well. And what we expect to see from our new class of high school students is that to be happening at an even faster accelerated rate, because they'll be by far the best prepared professionals in the community.
Great. I think the last question that we have time for is, you've been so successful in Chahul. So someone is asking, are there other communities that Limitless Horizons might have future plans to expand into?
Yeah. We wish we had that many funds, but we are just going to stay in our community. We also have there's a lot deeper we'd like to go in the community in our programming if we do have time and funds to extend deeper into the community and feel like in Chahul is where we're going to do our best work and can dig the deepest and bring the highest quality services. But we do love networking with other nonprofits throughout Guatemala and supporting each other and providing trainings and supporting the network through those routes.
Great. That's all the audience questions, Betsy. So I'll turn it back over to you to wrap up with Katie and go to the next part of the program.
I'm just thinking that being able to see all these graduates staying and getting great jobs, that's a great way to get the dads on board.
Yeah.
A lot of proud dads in Chahul. Anyway, thank you so much. We're now going to hear from several RISE members who saw firsthand the incredible work that Limitless Horizons is doing in Guatemala because they participated in our recent Guatemalan Together Women Rise trip. Our travel program is one of the many opportunities we provide for individuals to engage with our work and to deepen their understanding of the issues facing women and girls in the Global South. In April, a RISE group visited Limitless Horizons in Chahul, and we are excited to have 3 of these travelers with us tonight. You can wave when I say your name. Nancy Rhodes, a member from Washington, D.C., Joanne Cooney from Great Barrington, Massachusetts, and Anne Benefiel from Champaign, Illinois. They will now share their experiences with us.
Okay. And my slides can start whenever you have them, Wendy. And I should also say that there are 2 other people from our group that are on this call. Caitlin, who works for RISE, and Tawny are also here. So we actually have half the group is actually on this call. Okay, so thank you, Betsy. We can go to the next slide, which is a map of Guatemala. And we landed in Guatemala City, right in the center southern part. And we immediately went we were picked up and went to Antigua, which is just to the west of Guatemala City. And we were there for 2 wonderful days. And then we took a bus, an incredible bus trip, all the way up into the highlands of Guatemala to Neba and Chahul, which is where we spent our week. Okay, next slide. So our RISE group was 10 fascinating women from all over the US. We had an incredible time, and I definitely had the experience of a lifetime. Next. So these 2 accomplished co-directors of the school, who you've already heard mention of, greeted us when we arrived. Odie on the right and Ixil Mayan with a degree in pedagogy and environmental studies, and Zuli on the left, who's a non-Indigenous Guatemalan with a law degree. Next. So here's the awesome school building, which you've already seen, with cutting-edge design, solar-powered roof panels, and the pride of Chahul. Next. I'm going to go really fast on these because we have 2 others to talk. What impacted me most on this trip was meeting the students' mothers. They were all poor, rural, indigenous, monolingual Mayan speakers, but they want their girls educated, and they want it now. Not only that, they want their children to be highly educated. They're already planning to have them attend middle school and high school, and they want them to go to college, and the girls are planning on it. It's just incredible, as you've already heard. Next. So the school teaches academic subjects in Spanish, but building on their multicultural bilingual plan, they also teach the Ixil language as part of their focus. And we were lucky enough to get a 1-hour class, fantastically taught, with cutting edge language instructional methodology. Next. So we participated in a morning meeting where all the students in the school come out, and they do this on a regular basis. And this day's assignments was for the groups of 12 students, about each, to either write a poem or a song together with their group and perform it. So next slide, I'll show you what the group I was in did. So one girl said, okay, for our poem, everybody come up with one word. I'm going to write them all down, and then we're going to make a poem. And so this is what they came up with. They wrote, in a place of peace and harmony, today we welcome some bright stars. Today is a day of glory and joy for those shooting stars. And they were actually writing this poem for our group, which was very touching. Next. So we were invited to the family's home for lunch 2 days in a row, and this was a real highlight. And on the first visit, we learned to make tortillas. Next, we'll see if the video, okay, if you can make this video work and just play half of it. So they have the certain way they make the tortillas from the small size by hand, and they serve that with black beans and scrambled eggs for lunch, and it was just a really delicious meal. Yes. Okay, and you can go to the next, yeah. So this was the meal the next day, which was the traditional osh bol, which they made for us out of squash leaves and rolled up cornmeal mush rolled up inside, and then homemade sauces. And the one on the left has crushed pumpkin seeds in it, which was really delicious. Okay, next. So this is the grandmother in the second home that we visited, wearing the traditional hand-woven Ixil clothing along with her iPhone tucked into her belt. I love that. Next. So this mom was demonstrating the backstrap weaving for us. And the next slide is the mom teaching Anne how to do the weaving, and Anne really nailed it first time through. Okay, next. This is the mom, very proud of her daughter. This is her youngest daughter. And you can just see the inside of the home. They have like a fabric for a wall, and then you can see the one window in the home in the background. Okay, next. And this is the library that was opened recently by the school, and was opened in the town, not right at the school, which is on the outskirts. And it's the library for the whole town, not just for the school. Next. While we were there, the library organized a field day for young students in the community. And here the kids are lining up to make name tags. And next. And here's one of the children showing how he just made this puppet, and he's showing how he can make the puppet talk bilingually. Okay, next. So this is the final day. They did wonderful dances for us, traditional Maya Ixil dances. And we really loved this part. Okay, next. And these were the students saying gracias, thank you to us, where we should have actually been saying thank you to them. And there we are, our group is all in the back row. And okay, then we have one more video next, which is the co-director Zuli is also a Zumba instructor. So she was teaching the AP class this day and invited all of us to participate. So you can see some of the Americanas dancing with them. Okay. Have one final. So anyway, so that was a very, very brief slideshow of our wonderful, wonderful trip. And we'll now hear from two other participants.
Thank you so much, Nancy. That brought back such wonderful memories of our trip. Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne Cooney, and so pleased to share how uplifting it is to visit recipients of our monthly grants. I cannot encourage you enough to join one of these trips. After 8 years as a RISE member, I started taking a trip a year since 2022, the last of which was to Guatemala in April. These 3 trips have deeply expanded my understanding of the impact RISE is supporting through our grants. Of the 27 RISE members who I traveled with on these trips, everyone is a person I am so grateful I got to meet and know and travel with and have these experiences with. As exemplified in Guatemala, the Limitless Horizons staff, the guides, drivers, women and children and families participating in the various projects are all welcoming and beaming with hospitality. As we each arrived at various times, we exited the airport to find a driver with our name on a sign ready to whisk us to the hotel. That first morning, we were welcomed by Alina from Limitless Horizons, who was our anchor for the entire trip, seeing to our every need and reassuring us every step of the way. First with Aaron in Antigua, another member of the staff, and then with Michelle in Nabai and Chahul. And they were all so much fun, sharing their lives with us and a lot of their experiences. As we took our bus each morning up to Chahul from Nabai to the school and the library and the homes of the students, we could see the effects of Limitless Horizons project in this community. So many hundreds of lives are being impacted by their presence and efforts in the community, engaging workers at the school in teaching, administrative staff, cafeteria workers, maintenance and construction workers, as well as providing a market for the women as weavers and the food growers. For these Mayan communities in the mountains, most importantly is the example of how education and people working together gives the opportunities for better lives. The ripple effect gives the awareness and hope to the thousands of people who live there, and a path to those who want more for themselves and their families and a way to stay in their communities and work there. The students at the school and library were so engaged and determined in their quest to learn. We were amazed going into those classrooms and in the library that we weren't distracting the kids. They were zeroed in on what was happening. Being there is an enriching experience for us visitors. The students and workers are proud of what they have accomplished, and they're so happy to have you visit, to rejoice with them and to show us what is being accomplished. It is also a humbling experience to visit hardworking people who are so thrilled with every opportunity. There is a sharing and kindness in these communities that I witness at the RISE projects in Tanzania, India, as well as Guatemala. People with so little and yet so willing to give to their neighbors. As one of the drivers told me, you of course help one another. You never know when you will need help. Limitless Horizons Ixil is a superb example of a grassroots project started through the vision of Katie Morrow, who began within a decade after the secession of the Civil War and the genocide against the Ixil Mayan people in the Chuchumantas Mountains of Guatemala. Katie has shepherded this project, beginning with scholarships for Mayan children to continue their educations to 20 years later, working with these now educated girls and in some cases boys to return to the mountains, to teach in the middle school that opened 2 years ago, and to plan for the opening of the high school next year. As Katie Morrow leads the efforts of Limitless Horizons, she espouses and practices what Kenari Webb, Rise's April book author of Guardians of the Trees, calls the big vision for these projects: to give the local people the tools to express their ideas, share their knowledge, become educated, and gain the self-confidence to become participants and leaders in their own communities, and then handing the leadership over to them, as we see with the co-director of Colegio of the school, Odie. She's an Ixil Mayan woman and a leader in Cajul. David, the director of the library, is a scholarship guy, and many of the teachers are also scholarship recipients. So the incredibly well thought out program of including 1/3 boys in the school is a sure way to break the macho culture. When boys and girls are treated as equals at an early age, they learn what a false concept it is that only men can lead. Later in the workplace, men and women who were educated together consider ability and not gender as a reason to hire people. The leader of the IT at the school is a woman, and a wonderful example of how accomplished women can be. Dancing and music are always a part of projects and trips. I cannot say enough about that Zumba dance led by co-director Zuli that we participated in at 7,000 feet above sea level. Last month at our chapter meeting, Cynthia felt it connected us to the Rwanda project she presented by leading us in a dance she had come across while preparing her remarks about the Koala project. So as I present the Limitless Horizon grant this month at Great Barrington, we will join the spirit of the school students in the Zumba dance, which I hope will be a whole lot easier at 350 feet above sea level. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm third. My name is Ann Benefiel. Wendy, you have some slides. Can you show those? I have a pretty bad connection, so I'm hoping I'll be able to see them. Yes, I think I can. So I come from Champaign, Illinois, which looks a little bit like this. And over my years with Together Women Rise, I kept hearing very positive descriptions from travelers who have participated in Rise trips. The message was very consistently, if you get an opportunity to go on a trip, go. So when the Guatemala trip came up, I knew it would be well organized. I knew it would be educational. I have a lifelong interest in Central American and South American history and culture. I have a little Spanish, so I was very excited. I learned about the trip and I developed some expectations, and that's what I'd like to talk about. If you can do the next slide. So my slides are not moving, so I'm hoping you guys, can you see sock puppets yet? Okay, I'm not going to be able to see the slides. I'm just going to keep going. So I knew that we would see things like school children happy for the opportunity to learn. I assumed that we would encounter teachers who are dealing with the same kind of obstacles many teachers do, trying to educate middle school children, but in a more challenging environment where culture and poverty make educating girls a challenge. I know that's one of the things that draws most of us to organizations like RISE, because these are issues that we see. But, and if you can do the next slide, which should be mountains, since I'm not seeing them. There was this town I had never heard of. It's 7 hours by bus out of Antigua. It's the final hour from Neiba, where we stayed every night, goes up winding roads that are mainly washed out. They're so rutted, I have no idea how our bus didn't tip over. We didn't run over any livestock. We didn't have any accidents. We didn't hit any signs, but it is quite isolated. And so I had my questions about how we would feel about this community. And then if you can show the next slide, I wish I could see these with you, but there's the mountains. This is the approach. So this was my first encounter with the people of Neiba and Shahul. So look how sad they are. You know, they're living in this environment where they have historical trauma, they've suffered violence, but we look out the bus window and we see people who are happy and joyful and they're going to town and they're waving at us. So this started to change my expectation a little bit. And then the next slide. So a typical scene each morning as we were going into Chahul would be girls walking to school in their traditional skirts and huipiles. We might see dogs wandering along the road, even sleeping in the road. There were men carrying wood on their shoulders. Even the young children going to public school would be carrying sticks of wood with them to heat their schools. It was an environment that I had never experienced before. And I kind of thought maybe this will be a little sad and emotional to see how they have to deal with this. And then the next slide. Hopefully you guys are now seeing a couple, Pedro and Juana Santiago. So this married couple came and spoke to us. Separately, they survived the Ixil genocide. I had some expectations about this because I had prior knowledge of the history of Guatemala and the Civil War. And it was very touching for Pedro to share with us his experiences. The families of Chahul lost their crops, their homes, their livestock, most of their family members. Pedro and his wife Juana here, they did survive and they later married, they had children, one of whom, Enrique, was one of the students from the Horizon School, and he's now a proud and brilliant teacher at the Horizon School. So there was a happy ending. We were so honored that we were able to hear this story firsthand. And as RISE members, we do hear these stories every month. We hear our grantees who come and they speak to us about fighting the odds against disease and poverty and climate disaster, cultural and gender inequities. So, you know, my sense was if I had read only the grantee materials, I think I would imagine primarily the hardships of the people of Chahul and what they deal with each day. But you can show the next slide, and this is similar to some you've seen before. This should be a classroom scene. So instead, of course, what we found when we visited the school and the educational programs that were developed by Limitless Horizons was in stark contrast to any expectations that I had a priori. You've seen these beautiful facilities in the stunning natural setting of Colegio Horizontes. It's a beautiful school. When we got to sit in on the classrooms, we saw students using advanced learning strategies and critical thinking. We saw teachers who were trained in the most progressive approaches to teamwork. A school that any US city would be proud to have, even as a private school, let alone a public school. The school directors were enthusiastic, to say the least. They've been coached by international experts in leadership. The mentors who developed this wraparound program to help assure the success of the families was something that is brilliant and forward-thinking and so necessary in a town like this. But we were able to see the effect of that. We were able to see women who want their children to go to college, who want their children to wait to have their daughters to wait to have children until after they get an education. That was just a phenomenal expression. So the next slide is just another picture of the library. I think you've seen that before, so we'll hurry through because we're running a long time. But the community library was impressive in that we saw children focused on reading. One of our members, Adela, was reading a story, but those who didn't want to listen to the story were absorbed in their books. Their focus was something that was very notable, and we really appreciated it. And then the next slide is a picture of one of the homes that we visited, and this was on the day of the eclipse. So you've seen a few other slides describing the homes around Chahul. To say they're modest would just be a euphemism. They're small, they have corrugated roofs, often with holes in them, and they have mud floors. This was the day of the eclipse, and there was a hole in the roof of this home. And so one of the younger boys immediately noticed that he could see an image of the moon on the mud floor. He came and got our attention. It took them a moment to realize now they could put their hand out, they could project the image, through the roof onto their hand. The little girl went and got the family's cell phone and captured images of it. So, you know, no special glasses, no problem. These children were ready to learn. I can't help but think that this entire family's outlook on education and their futures has been lifted by having a daughter at the Horizons School. So the final slide, we can see the mountains again. And so I just wanted to express how this trip was able to change my expectations of how life might be in a town like this. So yes, it's devastated by war. The historical violence and trauma from Chahuil is something that most of us can't possibly imagine. The poverty means that families typically have to choose which one of their children can attend school. But we were able to experience this region in person, even if only for a week. It seemed like a lifetime. We learned so much in 8 days. It's almost incredible to me today. So I've come to expect that visions that are as long and wide as Katie's, generous funds, because it does take a lot of money for educational programs, but also that human resilience that we saw in the community are things that can turn a place like Chahuil into not just a livable place, but honestly, one of the most desirable places on earth. I was honored to get to go. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And also, I know that we're running a little over, but it's an exciting opportunity to hear from people who really experience this through our own eyes. So thank you so much for sharing your insights. And there's talk about that you can't judge people by a single story. So if the single story is poverty or genocide, that's one story, but you got a much richer, more complex, nuanced experience. And I'm sorry I didn't go on the trip. If you're interested in traveling with RISE, please check out our fall trips to Malawi and Cambodia. You can get all the details on our website. Click on Travel under the Join Us tab. But hurry, because there are just a few remaining spots on both of these trips, and registration deadlines are coming up fast. As a reminder, Together Women Rise depends on your donations to support grants like the one provided to Limitless Horizons, and to provide a wide variety of learning and engagement opportunities, including these webinars and our travel program. You can make a one-time, or even better, a recurring gift by using the link that you'll see in the chat. Thank you to all of our members who have already completed the 2 short membership surveys that we recently sent. And if you haven't completed them, please check your email. It will take less than 5 minutes and will help us. Thank you to everyone who attended this evening, and we welcome you to attend more of our upcoming events. Join us for our next monthly webinar on Thursday, August 1st at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, featuring our new grantees. For August, we will be discussing how we can break down the barriers to girls' education with our partners, Flying Kites in Kenya and Impact Network in Zambia. And this is our first grantee to Zambia. Curl up with your next summer read with one of our book club selections, including, as was mentioned at the beginning, Last to Eat, Last to Learn, My Life in Afghanistan, Fighting to Educate Women by Pashtana Durrani. We'll be hosting a Q&A with the author on Thursday, September 12th, and we will also be holding a separate online event for those interested in a deeper discussion about the book on September 19th. You can find all this information on our website, togetherwomenrise.org. Click on the Join Us tab and then upcoming events, where you can learn more, register for the events, and access recordings of past events. And also be sure to invite friends who you think would be interested and inspired. That's how we grow. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you at a future event. Good night, everybody.